The sea spray tasted like salt and fear. Towering waves, black as ink under a moonless sky, crashed against the hull of the merchant ship, the Royal Fortune. The wind howled a terrible song, ripping at the sails and making the rigging scream. On deck, sailors scrambled, their faces pale with terror. Not just from the storm, but from the shadow that pursued them. It was a pirate ship, a phantom gliding through the tempest with an unnatural speed. It flew no colors, but its reputation was a flag all its own. This was the territory of monsters. Tonight, the monsters were hungry. The chase had lasted for hours, a desperate flight across the churning Atlantic. The pirates were masters of this chaos. While the merchant crew fought the storm, the hunters used it as a weapon, herding their prey into a trap. Suddenly, grappling hooks shot through the air, their iron claws biting deep into the Royal Fortune's wooden rails. The sickening crunch was followed by a guttural roar from dozens of throats. Figures swarmed over the side, cutlasses, pistols. They were shadows brought to life, their faces illuminated by the flash of lightning. They moved with a terrifying confidence, born from a life of violence and plunder. This wasn't a battle, it was a harvest. The captain of the merchantman stood his ground, a pistol in each hand, but he was hopelessly outnumbered. The pirate captain, a giant of a man with a beard braided into menacing points, stepped forward. He didn't shout or rush, he simply smiled, a chilling expression that promised a terrible end. The air grew thick with the smell of gunpowder and desperation. This scene, or one very much like it, played out hundreds of times during the golden age of piracy. Ordinary men and women, pushed to the edge, chose to become the nightmares of the sea. They carved out a brutal, short-lived kingdom on the waves. They were thieves, murderers, rebels. They were sailors who had been cheated, naval men who had been abandoned, dreamers who sought a fortune they could never earn honestly. They rejected the kings and empires that had cast them aside and raised their own flag, the Jolly Roger, a symbol of freedom and death. To understand their story is to journey back to a time when the world was being redrawn. These outlaws were holding the pen, writing their legends in blood. Gold. Why do we remember these figures? Why are we so fascinated by these villains of history? The answer is simple. They were larger than life. Pirates weren't just common criminals, they were symbols of ultimate rebellion. In an age of rigid social classes and oppressive governments, they created their own floating democracies. On a pirate ship, the crew voted for their captain, and they could vote him out just as easily. They shared their loot according to a strict code, the pirate articles that everyone agreed to. If you had to name just one pirate, it would probably be Blackbeard. His real name was likely Edward Teach, but the world would come to know him by his fearsome nickname. Blackbeard was the master of image. He understood that in the business of piracy, fear was a more valuable currency than gold. He was a tall, imposing figure, but his most famous feature was his massive black beard. He would weave slow-burning fuses dipped in salt water and saltpeter into his hair and beard before a battle. When he lit them, his head would be wreathed in a cloud of thick, acrid smoke, making him look like a demon emerging from the depths of hell. His flagship was a legend in itself. The Queen Anne's Revenge was a captured French slaving vessel that Blackbeard refitted into a floating fortress. He armed it with 40 cannons, far more than most naval warships of its size. With this powerhouse, he created a pirate fleet, and blockaded the entire port of Charleston, South Carolina in 1718. Instead he held it hostage, demanding not gold or jewels, but a chest of medicine for his crew. In November 1718, Lieutenant Robert Maynard of the Royal Navy cornered Blackbeard in a shallow inlet off the coast of North Carolina. According to the legend, he was shot 5 times, and suffered at least 20 cutlass wounds, before he finally fell. To prove he was truly dead, Maynard cut off his head and hung it from the bowsprit of his sloop. Not every pirate captain was a fearsome warrior like Blackbeard. Some, like John Rackham, were known more for their style and the company they kept. They called him Calico Jack because of his flamboyant taste in clothing. He preferred bright, colorful calico trousers and shirts, which stood out in a world of drab, tar-stained sailor's gear. Calico Jack began his career under the command of another famous pirate, Charles Vane. When Vane showed cowardice by running from a French warship, the crew was disgusted. In a classic example of pirate democracy, they held a vote deposed Vane and elected Calico Jack as their new captain. Rackham was more of a talker than a fighter, preferring clever tricks and swift raids on small fishing boats and coastal traders. It was in Nassau, the bustling pirate haven, that he met Anne Bonny. She was married at the time, but she was drawn to Rackham's charisma and the promise of a life of adventure. Their affair became the talk of the town. When her husband threatened to have her publicly flogged for adultery, Anne and Jack decided to escape together. They gathered a crew, stole a sloop named the William, and slipped out of Nassau Harbor in the dead of night. Anne Bonny was no ordinary woman of her time. She was born in Ireland as the illegitimate daughter of a wealthy lawyer and his maid. Her family moved to the American colonies. From a young age she had a fiery, rebellious spirit and a fierce temper. She rejected the quiet domestic life expected of women. She married a poor sailor named James Bonny and moved to the pirate den of Nassau. But the life of a sailor's wife bored her. She craved excitement. She craved danger. She craved freedom. She found that freedom in the arms of Calico Jack Rackham. When she joined Rackham's crew, she refused to hide her identity. She dressed in men's clothing during battle. But around the ship, she was openly a woman. It was an astonishing breach of pirate tradition and superstition, yet she earned the respect of the crew through skill and ferocity. Contemporary accounts describe her as an expert with a pistol, and an expert with a cutlass. She was not a damsel in distress or a captain's prize. She was a pirate in her own right, an equal partner in crime and adventure. One captured hostage told a story that perfectly illustrates her fearsome reputation. During a raid, a fellow pirate complimented Anne, not realizing who she was. She reacted with fury and revealed her identity. She beat the man soundly before he could retreat. Another tale claims she stabbed a man in the heart for an unwanted advance back in Nassau. Whether true or exaggerated, these stories show she commanded respect and was not to be trifled with. While Anne Bonny lived her life openly, her crewmate Mary Red spent most of hers in disguise. Her story is honestly one of the most incredible in the entire history of piracy. It all began in England, where her mother dressed her as a boy to secure an inheritance. Mary, living as Mark Reed, grew up accustomed to a man's world. This disguise gave her freedoms impossible for women at the time. She joined the British Army and served in Flanders, proved a capable soldier, and fell in love. She revealed her secret to him, they married and ran an inn together. Her husband died young. With no way to support herself, Mary resumed her male disguise and rejoined the military. Her ship was captured by pirates, and she was forced to join them. She hopped from crew to crew, identity hidden, proving her worth. By fate she landed on Calico Jack Rackham's ship, serving alongside Anne Bonny. On board the William, a strange situation developed. Anne fell for the handsome sailor, Mark Reed, unaware he was a woman. Calico Jack grew jealous and threatened Mark. To save herself and prevent bloodshed, Mary revealed her secret to Jack and Anne. She was accepted into their inner circle. From then on, the three of them, Jack, Anne, and Mary, formed the most unusual pirate crew of the age. While Blackbeard was the most famous pirate and Calico Jack the most scandalous, Bartholomew Roberts was, by far, the most successful. In a career that lasted just 3 years, Black Bart captured over 400 ships. That's honestly more than Blackbeard, Calico Jack, and many other famous pirates combined. His story is remarkable because he never wanted to be a pirate in the first place. He was a Welsh officer on a slaver ship that was captured by the pirate Howell Davis. Being an expert navigator, he was forced to join the crew. Just a few weeks later, Davis was killed, and the crew elected him as their new captain. Once in command, Roberts embraced the life with a vengeance. He was a brilliant strategist and a strict disciplinarian. Unlike the drunken chaos on Calico Jack's ship, Roberts ran a tight operation. He was a devout Christian who forbade gambling and forbade drinking on his ship, and encouraged the crew's musicians to play on Sundays, but don't let that fool you. He was absolutely ruthless when it came to plunder. He even created his own elaborate pirate flags, one showing him standing on 2 skulls labeled a Barbadian's head and a Martinican's head. He vowed revenge on the governors of those islands who had dared to defy him. His end came in 1722 off the coast of Africa. His ship, the Royal Fortune, was surprised by the British warship HMS Swallow. Dressed in his finest battle attire, he stood on deck directing his men. In the opening broadside, a blast of grape shot struck him in the throat, killing him instantly. The golden age of piracy burned brightly, but it burned out fast. The very success of pirates like Blackbeard and Black Bart Roberts had just become too disruptive, too costly for the powerful empires of Britain, Spain, and France. By the 1720s, these nations decided they had had enough. This wasn't just a few ships hunting pirates anymore. It was a systematic campaign to wipe them off the face of the earth. A key figure in this campaign was Woodes Rogers, a former privateer who was appointed governor of the Bahamas. His motto was Expulsus Piratus, Restituta Commercia. Pirates expelled, commerce restored. He sailed into Nassau in 1718 with a fleet of warships and a royal pardon. He offered every pirate a choice: accept the king's pardon and give up the life, or be hunted down and hanged. Many, including Calico Jack for a time, took the pardon. Others, like the stubborn Charles Vane, refused and fought their way out of the harbor. Rogers turned Nassau from a pirate den into a pirate hunting base, effectively shutting down their most important sanctuary. The naval patrols became more aggressive and more effective. Fast, well-armed sloops were specifically designed to chase pirates into the shallow coves and inlets where they used to hide. The navies learned the pirates' tactics and turned them against them. Captains like Jonathan Barnett, who captured Calico Jack, and Chaloner Ogle, who defeated Black Bart, became heroes. The captured pirates were brought to admiralty courts in places like Jamaica and Virginia, where they faced swift trials and even swifter executions. And it's in that realm, on the misty horizon of our imagination, that the Jolly Roger will fly forever.